Hey guys, Victoria Langford, your credit solutionist here. I am the owner of PX Credit Solutions and lead debt elimination consultant over at mycreditcall.com. If you or someone that you know is struggling with debt and it seems like you have more bills left over than money at the end of the month, and you need someone to give you a curated strategy to get out of debt, we are your people. Go ahead and schedule your consultation for your one-on-one with me over at mycreditcall.com. It's been too long, you guys, and there is no mistake that we are talking about mental health on this Monday. Money and mental health are two things that go hand in hand, and I don't think that they're discussed enough in the YouTube space or even just in life in general. A lot of times, people that are in debt are stressed out and they have mental health issues that start to manifest because of those debt issues. And then we also have people that already have these mental health issues that start to spiral into debt because of their mental health issues. I, for one, take it very seriously, and it didn't dawn on me that there was a very strong connection to money and mental health until I did my presentation for the Get Some Skills or Take the Deal seminar that I was at in Atlanta, Georgia with Diamond Dave and Dr. Patrick Dix. I learned a lot during this creation of the presentation because at first I was going to talk to people about how to get out of debt, where credit comes from, how, banks are funded and all this stuff. And I thought, yeah, that's a great thing that you can talk about to the people. That's awesome. But it wasn't until I was like halfway through creating my presentation here at home that I thought, wait a minute, there's a big blaring thing about debt that I'm not talking about here. And I know about it firsthand. It was emotions and the emotion of spending, the emotion of debt, the emotion of watching bills just spiral out of control. There's a mental component to that. And I know it because when I do my consultations at mycreditcall.com and I speak with you guys, the number one thing I notice about all of you is that you are becoming a shell of who you were before you got into debt. You're stressed out, you have anxiety, you're angry. There's a lot of things that are happening. Most importantly, you feel shame and hopelessness. And that is why you booked the call, right? So as I'm putting my presentation together, I realized that I have to stop ignoring the elephant in the room, right? And it is that there is a mental health component to going into debt, right? Because not only are you stressed out because you can't pay your bills and that's how the debt increases and balloons, but then you have the stress of the debt being there and now being responsible for it with your limited income that you have in the first place. That's enough to drive anybody crazy. And then to add on top of that, you have a job where you get a 1% raise or a no percent raise, but you're expected to do double the work to show that you are valuable and you don't get laid off later on in the year, right? That's stressful too, because the cost of living continues to increase 3.4, 6.7, whatever it's going to be, but your annual income has not changed. That's a company decision, right? And I know I'm preaching to the choir here because at the presentation, when I asked that question, how many of you have had a job where you got a 1% or no percent increase for the year and you stayed? Do you know about half of the room raised their hands? So I would venture to say some of the stats that we see online about this percentage of people get a 4% and greater raise. No, they don't. No, they don't. Stop lying. No. You're lucky if you get 2 or 3%, right? So let's be honest about that. And that has a emotional toll that it can take on you too. There's no mistake that I'm doing this on Monday, on a holiday, because Monday is literally the one day that we need the biggest mental health boost, because a lot of us are going into jobs where we're not making enough money and we know we're going to go into debt. So honestly, going to work proves futile after so many weeks and months, and you realize you're not getting out of the hole because you don't make enough money. So let's take this Monday and really give some attention to our mental health, right? I talked to enough of you guys on the phone during our consultations to know that there is a rise in mental health crises because of debt, right? And the internet says so too. So you know it's got to be real, right? But I want to talk about how spending habits affect your mental health. I want to also talk about a very interesting point or syndrome that I came across called stress syndrome and uh, debt anger syndrome. Debt stress and debt anger. Those are both syndromes now. I know it because I experience it when I talk to a lot of people online. It's no joke. Now, there is a stark link between mental health and the way you deal with money. I talked about this with Diamond Dave on one of our videos before we went to Atlanta. And I was talking about how, you know, waking up every day, the first thought on your head is how much debt you owe or how you can't necessarily afford to pay for the roof over your head. That's a bummer. You're going to go into work salty and sour, right? You are not going to be happy when you get home. You are going to probably be reaching for a spliff or you're going to be reaching for a drink. Okay. I've known people to do both. Okay. And we are not judging here, but we are calling it like we see it. Now in my business, I recognize that there is the link between mental health, stress, depression, and being in debt. And I realize that when people call me and we go on these consultations, I am the step before you make a drastic choice. Right? I'm sitting and I'm taking a look at your finances. I'm looking at your personal life. I'm looking at all of these different factors to come up with a curated, specialized plan just for you or a strategy just to say, okay, maybe for you, it is getting a job. Maybe for you, you need to ask for that raise. Maybe for you, you need to go start a side hustle with that one skill that you have. Oh, you have a lot of stuff. It's time to sell it. I don't know that until I talk to you, but I am literally your last step before you make a drastic decision. What is that drastic decision, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you did. People call me at mycreditcall.com. They book their calls there because they are about to go into debt settlement. I get a lot of people that book calls with me from my national debt relief debt settlement video. That is where the majority of my customers come from. Hands down. Hands down. So thank you, YouTube, for pushing that video continuously. But they're either going to go into debt settlement, which is going to screw up their credit for the next 7 years and cost them money, right? They're going to go into bankruptcy, which is seriously going to affect their life for the next 7 to 10 years. But it's at least going to be a weight off of their back every month, right? It's just one more thing, one different thing to worry about. Number 3, some of them are on the brink of just throwing their hands up and stopping paying the bills and letting everything go to collections. Now, the 4th drastic decision that a lot of people make that we're going to talk about towards the end here is removing themselves from the earth. Now, I don't know that any of my clients were on the verge of that. I will never know because they never shared that with me. But when I share the statistics for the amount of people that remove themselves from the earth because of debt, I think you will be shocked, just as I was, right? But anyway, my clients are people that are about to make a very life-altering decision. So they want to talk to somebody before they make that decision, or they want to talk to me to get a game plan to take back to their wives. I cannot tell you how many men I've talked to on consultations and literally was like, look, you can't go in that house telling this woman that you're just going to pay your bills. You need to go back in there with a plan, map it out for her so she can trust you, right? So these are the things that I talk about. As I was putting together my presentation, again, I knew that there was a mental health component because I started thinking back to all of those guys that I've talked to, women too. They're all on the brink of making a drastic decision and they're stressed and they're just upset and they feel so alone. They could have a family full of people, like a house full of people, but they feel alone because nobody in the household knows that this person has all of the expenses in the household riding on their back. So while I give props to breadwinners. That is like the most amazing thing. I also don't envy the weight you have on your shoulders, right? But we talk about it during those consultations. So anyway, mental health. I brought that up because there is a connection here. So we all know, as far as the rise of credit card debt, right? We know that credit card debt is at about 1.079 billion right now. And that's according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, right? I know for a fact that that is not just because of inflation. I know that it is because people just don't feel good right now. And then the first thing you want to do when you don't feel good is do something to make yourself feel good. That's eat, that's drink, that's do drugs, that's buy stuff, that's play video games that cost money, by the way. It's a lot, right? Those are not healthy ways to deal with things. Retail therapy is not actual therapy, right? It can be traumatic if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, right? So I despise the term retail therapy. I feel like there's no such thing. Because something good happened, you now deserve to purchase a pair of $1,000 shoes? No, if you get $1,000 bonus, you owe it to yourself to go buy some land, right? You owe it to yourself to put that money in the stock market, because guess what? You're probably going to do better there, and it's going to last longer there than it is by buying a pair of shoes that are far too expensive, you know? So I know when people make purchases like that, it is a stress response. It could be because you don't feel good enough. It could be because you need to fit in somewhere. Yes, it could be to make yourself feel good and just because you like the style. Sure. Okay. We know that happens, but that's not the majority of why people consume. And I'm pretty sure that Diamond Dave, if he happens to catch this, could agree with what I'm saying. A lot of consumerism is based on emotions. So it would stand to reason that debt, you get into debt because of emotions, right? So all of this credit card debt is adding this crazy amount of uncertainty for people. And it's now causing people to realize that they do struggle with money. Now, the first thing you have to do when you want to talk about mental health and debt and stuff like that is you want to look at your spending habits. What are my spending habits? That's the first thing that I ask all of my clients. And it's interesting because not very many of them know what their spending habits truly are. It's not until I have them pull up their bank statement and then we look at it and I say, oh, well, you went out to eat a whole lot this month. Are you tired? Are you stressed? Why is it that you're not able to stand at the stove and cook? 9 times out of 10, they don't have time, or they have the time, but they would rather spend it vegging out in front of the TV. That's a stress response. That's a stress response to not having enough money or not having control over your life, right? I know that. Okay. So let's talk about habits. What is a habit in the first place? It's basically, according to the dictionary, it's a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. It is probably hard to program yourself to look at your bank account first thing every morning. It's probably hard to do that because you'd rather just get the hell up, get your coffee, brush your teeth, do whatever you do, and get out the door to start the day, right? That's avoidance. That's what that is, okay? But that's a habit. Okay. Now in psychology, there's also a definition for habits, and that is actions that are triggered automatically in response to contextual cues that have been associated with their performance. So that could be something like, I get stressed out, so I don't go off. I'm going to grab a drink. And when I grab the drink, I know that I'm going to be able to go to sleep. I'm going to be able to not have a fight. I'm going to be able to do whatever, or I'm going to drink because I want to get up and dance and lose my inhibitions. So it's kind of like you already know alcohol is going to do this thing. You need that thing. So you drink the alcohol to get that thing. So that can become a habit as well. Now let's talk about spending habits. Now, spending habits are obviously the way that you spend money, which is closely tied to who you think you are, who your self-perception, we'll say that, okay? Some of it is programming that you received when you were younger too, but that's like way deep into some stuff, and I'm not a mental health professional. I am just somebody that talks to people that have emotional difficulties or hurdles that are stopping them from paying their debt. Now, there are good habits and there are bad habits. Now, a good spending habit could be when you get your bonus, you take 25% and put it into your savings, maybe take 10%, throw it in the stock market, then take maybe 5% and splurge on something that you want, right? And that's okay. That's good spending. You're being a good steward of your money. Now, bad spending could be buying coffee every day that can cost you what, 25, 30 bucks a week, probably more, where you could just take the 20 or $30, go get a coffee maker, wake up 10 minutes earlier and have your coffee at home, right? That is bad spending. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to get rich by, doing that, but that's just a small example of bad spending. If I could give you, the reason that we know it's bad spending, let's just say this. Let's say you get that bonus and your automatic thought process is, let me go get some shoes, or let me, I don't know, just buy, what do people wear now? J's and Louboutins? I don't know. But let's say you want to spend your money on that. Okay, that's a problem because you're spending money on a liability. It's something that literally not even a week after you get it, you're going to be over it. But the money's already gone, and the thing you bought, it's now used. So you're not even going to be able to get like prime money even if you resell it. That's bad spending. I'm guilty of bad spending too. Don't get me wrong. So I'm not saying this like I've never done it. Yeah. Okay. One bad purchase that I will admit that I made is my Mustang. The reason that I say it was a bad spending was because, number one, I didn't have a car note when I bought that car. I had a car and a Vespa already, both paid off. I wanted that Mustang to feed my ego because I wanted something red and I wanted something fast, but I wanted to be sensible about it. So I got the 10-speed automatic. Okay. I have an EcoBoost for those of you that need to know, but my baby's fast. She got like 320 horsepower and we about to do an exhaust delete. We good. That could be bad spending, right? But that's what I'm saying. And that's how quick it is, right? Had to check myself because I might not get that exhaust delete now that I said it. But if I could go back, it doesn't make sense to buy a Mustang when I already had a car and another mode of transportation, a Vespa, no car payment. And both, the insurance was less than $100 combined for both of those things, right? That was bad spending. Oh God, if I could go back. If I could go back, I would have leased that car for a year and that was it. That was it. Because I even got sideswiped by a midget 2 weeks after I bought that car. I was hurt. Okay. And I was always like stressed out driving that car anyway. I mean, I have it now. I still have it, which I love it, but it's like, no, if I could go back, I wouldn't have bought that. So what do you think about when you think about bad spending, But bad spending does affect your mental health, because once I really did, put two and two together and I was like, oh my God, what the hell did I do? It was like, okay, I'm definitely not taking the car back, but it's like, okay, now I just need to work that much harder because I went from not having a car note to having a car note. What the was I thinking? These are the decisions that we make, right? And it was a emotional thing, 100%. So that was a bad spending habit. I'm going to be real about that. That was bad, right? So how bad spending can affect your mental health. Let's talk about that. So mental health is pretty much how you feel with your emotions and stuff, right? When you spend too much money or buy the stuff that you don't need, it can tend to make you feel stressed and anxious. Like I said, I was so happy to get my car, but then immediate dread set in. I was like, oh my God, I just locked myself into a bill. Crazy, right? And that did affect me for a while. The most enjoyment I got from that car was like speeding down the highway. Yeah, that was fun. And then when people would compliment me on that car, because I know it does stand out. I know you're thinking like, oh, it's just a Mustang, it's nothing. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But a lot of people stop me and talk to me about my car. So it's a good conversation piece, but I wouldn't go back. If I could do it again, I would not have done that. I really wouldn't. And then that kind of stress does tend to make you feel a little bit bad inside. So one way for a lot of people to detect whether or not they have depression or some kind of mental deficiency going on, and I don't mean deficiency in a bad way, it's just you're off kilter, right? You're just you're not standing on your square. A lot of times debt is actually a symptom of depression and anxiety. Taking on debt is it's a symptom, right? I didn't start to see it until I put two and two together as I'm talking to all these people during our consultations. So I had to add that into my presentation in Atlanta with Diamond Dave and Dr. Dix. Now, let me talk to y'all real fast about that, because I think some people are really still in denial about what I'm talking about. So I'm going to share my screen really quick, just to share a portion of my presentation that I did at the Get Some Skills or Take the Deal presentation. So let me share this with y'all real quick, because I think the numbers will shock you. Let me put it on slideshow so it could take up the whole screen. I think y'all can see that. Let me see. Let's do, how can I do this? Let me see. It's something with how I'm sharing it that's not working. Hold on. Let's share the screen. Let's do the entire screen. There we go. All right. So the numbers do not lie when it comes to emotional spending, which is how 90% of my clients end up talking to me. So 70% of people admit that emotions have fueled their spending choices. I think if Diamond Dave is here, he can agree when I say all consumerism has an emotional mental health component to it. So I know debt and anxiety, depression, all those things, they go hand in hand. Okay. Now, out of that 70%, 71% of those people that use their emotions, they experience guilt, shame, and regret after the dopamine wears off. That's the middle circle here. That's insane, y'all. 71% of the 70% of people that emotionally spend have negative emotions after the dopamine wears off. 39% of those people then admit that they have gone into debt because of emotional spending. This is so serious, y'all. Like, this is actually not a joke. And it's scary, because when I was putting my presentation together and figured this out, I was like, oh my God. And it was like a divine download. And instantly I was transported back to how I felt when I had a ton of collections, like in my mid-20s. I did not want to tell a soul. I felt so much guilt and shame and all that kind of stuff, right? I've even purchased things and felt shameful after. You know, when you buy a dress or a pair of shoes and you're like deep in your gut, before you even buy it, you know you're not going to wear it. How many people in the chat, or even that watch this video in the replay, how many of y'all have purchased something and then not worn it and you feel some kind of way about it? Or before you even purchase it, you're not going to wear it, but you just have to like satiate an urge. It's dopamine. Like, literally, you want to get high on the dopamine, but once that wears off, you end up having to repeat the cycle again. So you go back to the mall 2 days later, and God forbid you know how to spend or have stuff automatically programmed in your phone or your computer. You're going to be clicking and purchasing like crazy. Godspeed, right? Godspeed. So let's talk about the emotions that people actually feel when they are spending. We're going to talk more about this on another day, but I had to show this next. Let me see if I can click on the next slide. Let's see. All right. So I also shared this at the presentation as well. Reasons that we overspend. So remember those 70% of people and the 71% of those people that overspend because of emotions. Excitement is the top emotion. Happiness is next. Boredom is another reason that we go into spending. Sadness. This is a big one. Isolation, breakup, familial issues, loss of some sort, and depression. When I went into debt, that was exactly, I would say in a nutshell, I was very sad. That was a very sad, a sad time in my life. Like, I'm not going to front about that. And I think that I feel like I can share that with you guys because when people come to me for consultations, they are so open with me that I am adding this to my repertoire as the credit solutionist. Like, we're going to start telling the effing truth around here. You are not happy when you're in debt. You are not happy. Okay. Like, let's be honest about that. So you go and you spend some money that you technically don't have. You buy a thing, and then the thing satiates that urge and gives you the dopamine. And then when it's done, you end up feeling worse off than you felt before, right? And then anxiousness. So some people purchase to self-soothe. They have worry and regret. They're overcompensating for something. A lot of people go into debt because they're overcompensating. Loneliness. This ties into the sadness factor, right? Isolation. A breakup can make you pay for a lot of things and just go shopping. Again, retail therapy, right? Alienation and depression. So many people that don't have money feel so isolated, which is interesting to me because there are so many Americans that are in debt right now. It's insane that one would be in such good company, but feel like they're alone. The reason that a lot of people in debt feel alone and they feel sadness is because nobody's talking about it. That's why people book with me, because it's a private call. That's why people will not get online with me and talk to me, right? That's why. That's why, right? There's a reason that a lot of these debt shows have call-in shows, because people will not show their face. People will not show their face. The guy, Caleb Hammer, I love his channel, but the people that go on there for the most part, well, let me watch it. They are unique kinds of people. They are not your everyday person that is the boy or the girl or the man or the woman next door. They're not like that. These are people that literally think they're going to be social media phenoms, right? They're just different for the most part. He does have some normal people on there every now and then, but not often enough. You get the sense that they're trying to get their 5 minutes or whatever of fame. So, and no shade to Caleb Hammer. I think he has a great channel, but your average person is not talking about this, right? And for those of y'all that don't know, like, I work over with a florist now in Virginia, because it's like, people got to get out the house, and I like money, right? But some of the people that I work around, they believe they're poor. Like, they really believe they're poor. And I'm just looking at them like, wow, that's insane. That's insane, because we're in a multi-billion-dollar industry and you feel like you're poor. Well, you need to find a way to make money from it, because I know I'm about to. Okay. I've actually been thinking about purchasing some land and maybe leasing it out to like a flower farmer or something. I think that's a cool idea. But back to what we're going to talk about here. People do feel alienated when they don't have money or when they're in debt, because you're making money and then it's immediately going to pay off something that you either don't even have anymore, or it was a fleeting experience, like a vacation or something. Yes, you have the memories, but now you also have the debt. That's not a memory that I want to have, right? Now, surprisingly, romance is only 13% of the reason people overspend. So how about that for the red pill space? Because y'all be saying that you spend so much money. There's only 13% of people that overspend because of romantic encounters. That's right here. Okay. So that's not even a big deal. It's more related to negative emotions. And then the number one emotion that actually causes people to overspend is stress. Crazy, right? And I know that sounds kind of nuts, but it is actually the truth. Stress causes people to overspend. So with that being said, I want to kind of talk about this new syndrome that I came across as I was doing a little bit of research for today's live stream. There is actually a syndrome called debt stress syndrome, and it's closely linked to a lot of mental health issues. So when somebody's overwhelmed by debt, essentially, they go into like denial, anger, aggression, anxiety. They have a lot of different feelings. There is a reason that in very low income, poverty stricken areas, violence is a thing, There's also a direct connection to having a lot of money and engaging in violence in more subtle ways, right? Because they're two extremes, but both create mental havoc, right? If you don't take care of your mental health, or the reasons that you are overspending. Now, one of the biggest problems with debt stress syndrome is that it hurts your self-esteem. That is like the number one issue or symptom, right? It can also mess with cognitive function. So that's another thing that I thought was so interesting about this syndrome. So let me see if I can find the article, and I'm going to read through some of it with you guys, because I just thought this was so interesting. Because there's debt stress syndrome and there's debt anger syndrome. These are two crazy. If you could not afford your basic cost of living, food, shelter, clothing, so much so that it's affecting how you live your life. You have roommates that you don't want to live with. You have a boyfriend or girlfriend that you're only living with because y'all can make ends meet together. You live at home with your mom who you hate, whatever it is, right? Not having money affects you mentally, and it changes how your life is conducted. It's insane how this works. But let me go ahead and share this article real quick. Let me get it up on the screen here. And be sure to like the video as you're coming in. Okay, so let's talk about it. So debt stress syndrome is linked to those mental health issues that we talked about. Now, debt and mental health. It says, does debt cause mental illness, or does mental illness cause debt? Both answers are yes. This is at debt.org, just so you guys know. And I'll leave a link to this, article in the description below. So it is actually, there is a strong connection to both. And nearly half, which is 46% of people in trouble with debt, also have a mental health problem. And people experiencing mental health problems are 3.5 times more likely to be in trouble with debt than those that don't have mental issues. Now, these are people that are reporting their mental issues. We're not even going to talk about the people that have these mental issues but do not report it, right? The people that have the debt and are proud of it or don't care, those aren't the people that call me at mycreditcall.com. They not the same breed. They are not. So I beg to differ with this 46%. I actually think that there is a higher percentage of people that have mental health issues due to their debt, to be quite honest with you. So there it is. My point is proven. A Forbes advisor survey in late 2023 found that 54% of adults with debt say they're stressed by it. So how do we go from 46% to 50% that quickly, right? So I venture to say it's even more than that, to be honest with you. And 60% of the respondents said that their financial stress has led to disagreements in their relationships. Debt stress and associated mental health issues can increase usage of drugs and alcohol, as well as cause other adverse behaviors such as change in appetite, procrastination, and nervousness. That's insane, you guys. Did you know that if you deal with a person that procrastinates, maybe has extreme ways of eating, people that are very overweight do actually tend to have debt? Crazy, huh? So I will say I have seen a direct link to those two things just in my life and in myself too. Like, I will tell you, stress and anxiety, whether it's debt or other stuff, it starts to manifest on your body in different ways, right? So debt stress can definitely show up as any of those things, okay? Now, let's talk about the effects of debt on mental health. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to share my screen again. So, all right. Here's how debt affects mental health. Denial. This is definitely something that I've experienced in my life. It says many consumers continue to spend compulsively with no consideration given to their deteriorating financial condition. You know how you have a famous person that may spend and spend and spend until they literally have to file bankruptcy? That's what this is. So it's almost like just act like it's not happening and sweep it under the rug until the rug becomes a mountain of dirt and debt, right? That's what people do. And then another effect on mental health is stress. So it's the opposite of denial. Stress and debt are like conjoined twins. It says money trouble on one side, tension and strain on the other. That is such a truth right there, because When you have the debt, it's because it's pulling debt. Debt is like a black hole. It pulls all of the progress, all the work, everything you're doing. You're working in this moment to take care of expenses and things that occurred in the past. That's an insult. That's an insult to your sensibilities as a person. So that creates stress because you end up feeling like you're working for nothing. Because that's what it is. You're working for, like, you're working to get to payday, and then payday is just to pay debts. That's a debt day. That's all it is, right? It's not helping. So that's where stress comes from. Now, the strongest predictor of financial strain is credit card debt. That is why lenders judge you based on that, because they know that you are financially stressed. That can also mean that you are mentally stressed. That is why some jobs will turn you down because of your debt. There's a reason that the person that's in the most debt is actually the biggest suspect when something crazy goes on at work, because when you have stress, you have anxiety. And when you have anxiety, you don't perform in the way that you could. And you're more susceptible to do things that are risky. So another component of debt and mental health, one thing that debt can trigger is anxiety. So anxiety is the physical manifestation of like heartbeat. It could be your heartbeat. It could be shortness of breath, dry mouth, a headache, and the shakes. When I was in deep debt, I definitely suffered from asthma a lot more. So I know for sure that definitely had an effect on me. I definitely had anxiety at one point in my life. Anger. Now, this one is very important because I want to have a word with my red pill spacers and my gold digging women. Very small part of society, by the way. But the internet kind of makes it seem like it's a bigger deal than it is. But one thing I noticed when I talk to a lot of guys that follow certain talking points in the manosphere area, I do notice there's a lot of anger there. A lot of that anger comes from not being financially astute or successful. It's thinking that they were going to be further along in their financial life than they are today. And then the anger from being judged for it. I know that happens a lot. Another part of the anger that kind of goes into the debt part and the financial part is that you have a group of men that don't make enough money. They don't make enough money to live the life that they envision, and they don't live the life to pull the women and attract the partner that they think that they are worthy of. Now, I've heard this 1,000 times just in regular conversation. And I've also heard men say, well, I make this amount of money, so I deserve XYZ. So imagine having that attitude, but everything that comes towards you is something that you don't want. So not only, on one side, we have men that don't make enough money and aren't getting the thing they want, but we have men that make a lot of money and they're mad because of who they have to spend it on. Anyway, that's another conversation for another day. But anger and debt and anger and not getting what you want is a very big theme in that space. I just had to talk about that. I think when it comes to the other side, where it is women, wanting to date men that have money, they get angry too. They're angry that they have to do what they're doing and date men that they don't like so they can get a bag. A lot of women are angry that they have to do that. They don't manifest it by throwing things. They don't manifest it that way. They manifest it in the way that they treat the man. See that? See how I did that? Yeah. So you red pillars, just get out of debt and you'll be fine. And all you gals that are angry that you can't pull the man that you want, or, you can't really get the rich hot guy, but you get the rich kind of chubby guy. Don't be mad about that. Just be mad about like how you got into that situation in the first place. Anyway, that was a side note. But the medical world has a name for the anger and debt phenomenon, and that is called the debt anger syndrome. So victims get mad at creditors who continually send them bills, mad at the mailman for delivering the bills, and mad at their boss for not paying them more, and mad at their spouse for not making more money, or mad at their kids for needing new braces, and mad at themselves for getting into this fix. So I would say that that's the biggest component, is that you're mad at yourself that you got into this situation. You may be mad at yourself that, you thought that you'd be further along. You might be mad at yourself that you believed that going into debt for that degree was literally going to somehow the degree was going to pay for itself tenfold. Nobody told you about the other things that were going to come, like adult life, like living expenses. Nobody told you that. So there is a sense of anger that comes from that. And I get that from all my clients. They're not mad at me. They're just mad that the system lied to them. I'd be mad too. There's definitely parts of the system that anger me every day, but I'm kind of a doofus for believing it was going to work out anyway, right? Now, the last one would be depression. So after denial and after anger, hopelessness sets in, and then low self-esteem. This happens so much, and I see it so much online and with my clients. So the depression can lead to even more debt since sufferers sometimes try to relieve their depression by treating themselves to a shopping spree or some other mental getaway. Depression does not discourage impulse spending. In fact, it has the opposite effect, but all that does is lead to more debt, which leads to more depression and despair. So this is so true because I remember the only reason that I stopped going into debt was because everything got maxed out and I couldn't pay anymore. So everything went to collections. So it was like, holy crap, I'm definitely not paying these collections. I'm just going to have to wait 7 years for them to fall off. The majority of my debt, that is what happened. I waited 7 years. The difference is I was younger at the time, so I had the 7 years to wait. Now, if I fell into collections, I would not wait 7 years because I will be of a certain age by that time. And it's like, nah, bro, we can't live like that, right? We can't live like that. But as far as the depression component, definitely a big one. I talked about a young man that I spoke with at the presentation. I'm not going to tell his business because this is like all over the internet, but there was a certain thing that he was spending money on, but it was because he was depressed. And then he spent the money on this thing, didn't really get the payoff he thought he was going to get from it. And now he's even more depressed because now he feels kind of foolish that he thought that was the answer. Right? He was doing it for a false sense of bravado. That was the thing that he spent the money on. And then he felt kind of bad after because he's like, now I'm sitting here. Nobody that I partied with is even trying to help me. Right? So that leads to depression as well. And there was an interesting part on this article about how debt stress affects different age groups. I think that's very interesting, but I'm not going to talk about it today. But what I did want to kind of talk about before we get going here, I wanted to talk about the effects of stress and mental health when it comes to debt and money and why it's so important for if you are about to make a drastic decision, please book the consultation. Okay. You have spent money on way worse things in your life. Like spending an hour or more with me for what I charge to get yourself back on track, to know whether or not the things you're thinking of as a solution, whether or not they make sense or not. Throw ideas around with somebody that does this for a living. I do this for a living. So spend the money, get it done. You have an entire family that's counting on you, right? So like I said, when people call me, it's before they make a drastic decision. So if you are thinking about, debt settlement, if you're thinking about bankruptcy and all these crazy things, hit me up first. What's another $200? What's another $200? Let's be real, right? You gonna file bankruptcy anyway. But seriously, get on the phone and call me. But I wanted to talk about one drastic measure, if we haven't already, that I just thought oh God, it was astounding. Apparently, out of the 30% of people that remove themselves from the earth because of things that they can't deal with, 16% of those people that take themselves from the earth do it because of debt issues. Oh my God. When I read that, I was like, what? So 16% of that word in the US occur in response to a financial problem. This is not a game anymore. People are literally themselves because of money, debt. Once the money's spent, it's done already. The main takeaway you have to get today, aside from it being a mental health Monday, is that Debt is not the end of the world. The beauty about debt is that it shines a light on all of the deficiencies that you have in your personality, in your lifestyle, in your expectations. It helps you temper your life. So debt, though it is, oh, it's such a humbling experience. That's the beauty of it. But it will literally show you who you are as a person. Will you duck your head in the sand? Will you be proactive and start working more? Will you tell somebody and get the support that you need? Will you talk to a debt counselor? There's free debt counselors too, but y'all pay me to tell you the truth, right? It's like, these are things that we have to do. And debt is just one of those life lessons that a lot of people have to go through. Debt is never a reason to unalive yourself, ever. And if you have that issue, please talk to somebody. Please talk to somebody, right? Because listen, them creditors, they gonna go on with or without you. So do not let that be a reason. Don't let that be a reason. And definitely if you're on the verge like that, okay, don't hit me up. Talk to an unaliving line. Like, please get the help, right? Because debt is never that serious. But 16%, y'all, that's not a joke. So that lets me know what I do is so much more than removing items from a credit report, right? I don't know if you guys remember the story. It was a couple of years ago now. A girl, I think she was in the UK. She was only like $3,000 in debt. She jumped in front of a train with her kid. So I can't hear stories like that and then not say that there's no mental health component, please. So mental health Money Mondays, we're going to call it something, but we're going to touch on a mental health something or other on the Mondays on this channel, because this is insane to me and it needs more attention than it's been getting. Anyway, guys, that's like all I have for you today on this Mental Health Money Monday, Money Mental Health Monday, Monday and your mental health. I don't know. We'll find a title. Give me something. But if you guys came by, thank you so much for stopping in. I got stuff to do. Definitely am going to go eat now because it's Memorial Day. So I actually made some barbecue. That's what I'm going to eat right now. So thank you guys so much for coming through. Don't forget, if you dug the content today, drop me something in the Cash App, right? $ the Credit Solutionist. Cash App. You can also super chat or you can, I don't know, buy me lunch, Venmo me something. I don't know. Whatever you guys do to show appreciation. But I'm glad you came through. If you need help, please, please, please be sure to book a call with me at mycreditcall.com to discuss your debt issues. And with that being said, I'll see you guys on the next video. Credit Solutionist out.